Are you tired of a podcast that only entertains you without leaving you with something to think about? Are you looking for a podcast that truly enrich your life? Then Let's Talk is the show for you. Our motto is to make people think after every episode, and we take that mission seriously. Each episode is carefully crafted to provide an insight and ideas to help you live a more fulfilling life. From practical tips for improving your mental and physical health to thought provoking ideas and discussions on personal growth and development, Let's Talk has something for everyone. Our guests come from a variety of backgrounds and bring wealth of knowledge and experience to the table. We believe that everyone has something to teach, and we are committed to bringing you the best insights, ideas from the wide range of perspective. So if you're ready to start thinking more deeply about your life, how you can make it better, then Let's Talk is the podcast for you. Subscribe today and start enriching your life one thought provoking episode at a time. Welcome to Let's Talk podcast. Hello, everyone. So let's get started with the story as usual. Before and during the Olympic career, Michael Phelps was also known for his prowess and competitiveness. But after retiring from swimming, he began speaking publicly about his struggles with mental health. This journey of mental fitness has just as inspiring, if not more so, than his physical achievements. Michael Phelps was at the height of his career, breaking records and winning gold medals. Yet, he was battling severe depression and anxiety. There were times when he didn't want to be alive. After his second DUI arrest in 2014, he hit rock bottom. He was lost, unsure of his identity outside the pool, and left a profound sense of emptiness and isolation. Phelps realized that he needed help. He entered a treatment facility in October 2014, a decision to confront his feelings and learn coping mechanism. He started practicing mindfulness and meditation to manage his stress and anxiety. He also made a physical exercise a key part of his mental health strategy, which may be a given being an athlete, but this wasn't about the training about on his competition or for competition, but about taking care of his mind. Phelps, or I would say, most importantly, Phelps started to open up about his mental health struggles. Gradually, he understood the power of his platform. He made a decision to break the stigma around the mental health and start talking candidly about his struggles in the interviews and even testified before Congress about the importance of mental health. He has since become an advocate of mental health, partnering with organizations like National Alliance on Mental Illness and the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. He also started the Michael Phelps Foundation, which he focuses promoting water safety, health, healthy living, and the importance of mental health. Phelps' journey is a powerful testament of the importance of mental fitness. His openness about his struggle has shown that, or I would say, the break down the stigma that mental health is just as important as physical health. Today, he's not even known, or not just known as a great swimmer of all time, but as a mental health advocate who uses his experience to help others. His journey reminds, which is very important here, is that it's okay to ask for help and taking care of our mental health and being essential part of our overall well-being. It's a journey like any journey. There can be setbacks and difficult times, but with perseverance and support, it's possible to achieve mental fitness. So that being said, today, as you must have recognized, the topic is mental health. So before that, I welcome all our viewers and listeners to Let's Talk. Our whole agenda and whole motto and mission of our podcast is to enrich life through this medium. And today we have a guest, and let me first of all put her on the stream and then I'll explain. So please welcome Gina Olson. She's a technology specialist at Microsoft. While she's not talking technology, uh, I would say when she's not talking technology with her customers, she enjoys the holistic health and wellness. And through her own personal journey, she discovered the importance of mental health or fitness. And that is something which we are going to unwrap today. She also partnered with a gentleman, Neerav Sheth, a mental fitness and life coach, representing Stratosphere, which is a firm based out of Minnesota. So, Gina, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you, Saram.
That's great. Gina, as we were preparing, actually, we had all these conversation around your mental health journey, and mental health is definitely being discussed in different platforms. And this is something which is obviously not new in terms of the awareness. There are a lot of awareness drives, firms, and people's initiatives. However, the uniqueness of these stories like yours and others we are bringing is everyone has their own sort of journey and their own way of starting this mental fitness and health journey. So, that being said, uh, I would like to know about maybe anything which I missed out from your introduction and how you started this mental health journey here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, like you mentioned, Gina Olson, I'm based out of Minnesota, Minnesota lady, born and raised. Love, like you said, all things holistic health, wellness. So, I really approach life as like a mind, body, soul combination.
Mhm.
And I've been really into personal development, I'd say most of my life, but especially over the last couple years, have made a lot of big life changes, if you will. So started kind of a overall life detox process a couple years back, and started really with my body and removed alcohol and toxins, went plant based and just started eating super clean, which put myself in a state that I could be receptive, I'd say, honestly, to working on my mental health. I felt like for a while I was pretty cloudy on like autopilot, hamster wheel of life. And once I started feeling a little bit more clarity, I got a lot of interest in mental health and just mental fitness. And ever since then, I just feel like I see life differently. So that's at super high level, kind of how I got here.
That's great. That's great. Basically, uh, right now you mentioned that this is how you transform. So
Mm-hmm.
let's try to kind of unwrap a few things that how exactly did all started? Because obviously, eating clean, fitness is not something by default human behavior, right? Inherently, we are lazy, and there are certain kind of a driving force which definitely make us move and realize in terms of whether to excel and get into a self-reflection zone, getting into self-contentment, and all those. So, how exactly all this started?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that it honestly started, Sarab, when I finally hit my breaking point. I think for so many years I definitely have people pleasing tendencies. I never put myself first. Um, like I said, I felt like I was just on like the hamster wheel of life, very fast paced. I've been in tech sales jobs for about 12 years around that. And I've always done well. I just felt like just was nonstop. Honestly, I've been a social butterfly my whole life. So happy hours, hosting gatherings, traveling. So had been doing that for like 10 years straight and finally just hit my breaking point. I've been going through a lot of like personal life challenges too. I think, another catalyst of that was just when I realized that like I never had a connection with my mind body, and kind of fell into a depression a couple years ago. And so with that, I've also been going through a divorce and some other life challenges. And I think I just hit a point where I was like, I need to make some changes. I've been one where I'd incorporated some exercise or like healthy eating and things like that, but there was never any real consistency. And so I think I just hit a low that I was like, wow, I gotta make something happen here. And when I put my mind to something, I go all in. So that's where I just was like, I gotta start with my body, remove the toxins, chemicals, which kind of just gradually got me into like strength training, and eating healthy, yoga, meditation. My trainer was actually the one who introduced me to the concept of mental fitness, and my coach, Nirav. And I feel like looking back on my journey, that was really just a pivotal moment in my transformation once I went through the mental fitness positive intelligence program.
That's great. To know about that, you have definitely kind of improve in terms of like your. I mean, it's very important to understand that when you hit the rock bottom or the breaking point, as I was also explaining in about the story from Michael Phelps, right?
Mhm.
So uh, we have to then try to spend a lot of time to understand like, now I think the bad part has been done, it's time to improve. And you mentioned that uh, you then try to eat clean and then do a lot of physical exercise, and that based on the brain science really create a lot of impacts like placebo effects and all, just to make sure that it tries to makes you feel that you are doing something constructive. So coming back to, like you said, the breaking point, help us walk through that. Are there any kind of anecdotal experience which you had, or something that, or it's a kind of a series of events which say that, okay, now it's enough. Let me just get control of my life and try to make some steps which move me towards progress.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say there's been multiple moments. I
Mm,
think just to hone in just on like the mental fitness
mm,
piece, I felt like I was doing all these things, right? The personal development things. I was making so many major changes just with, like you said, it's hard, like making changes with your diet and exercise. Like it's definitely hard work. So I was already trying to like, you know, it's a big shift. Like everyone says, don't take on too much at once, but I was like, I'm just going for it. So I got to the point where I'd been working with my trainer at the gym, and he's like, Gina, you should really check into mental fitness. And I was like, Brian, I can't do it. I can't add another change on my plate. And one day I came in and he's finally like, enough's enough. Like, you're doing this program. I'm introducing you to Nirav. So um, I think like honestly, even after like my first week, like the program teaches you. So let me take a step back.
sure.
Physical fitness, I think we can all agree, is like a societal standard that's important, right, for everyone to do. And so, although you might not know the term mental fitness, it's honestly the exact same concept. So, just like you'd go to the gym to like build your muscles, you'd want to also have like a regimen in place or framework that you're working on building your mental muscles um, for your mental health. And so, once I started doing this program, it's all backed by neuroscience, by the way, which is also super intriguing to me. Like the science piece, right? It's not just like a theoretical concept. Like you really have the ability to actually like tap into your brain and rewire through neuroplasticity. And so the program teaches you that there's a left side of your brain and a right side of your brain. The left side is more based off of like your analytical brain, so and negativity. So think of like it's called saboteurs, like the self-sabotaging thoughts in your mind. And then the right side is your sage, and so that you can think of like love, compassion, really when you're thriving in life, right? And so The second that I honestly like realized that I was an observer of my own thoughts, right? Like I never acknowledged my thoughts or like the ability to actually control them and create your own reality. And so like that was just a mind-blowing moment to me. Like on paper I've always been successful in my sales jobs and in quote unquote life, right, with societal standards. But I feel like I was really driven by that left side of my brain, like I was describing. So it'll provide you with short term success, but not long term. And wasn't true happiness. It's like how I felt on the inside and how I was portraying myself to the world was so large. Like when I went into my depression or rock bottom, a lot of my close friends and family were so surprised. They're like, "Oh my gosh, Gina, like you're literally one of the happiest people I know. Like, what's going on?" But I had put on such a good front for so long. And I feel like so many people do that, right? Like, who are you living for? And so doing this like mental fitness work really gave me the ability to close the gap between how I feel on the inside and how I portray myself to the world. And it's such a beautiful feeling. So that's why I'm here, because I just want everyone to feel that way.
That's great. I think you touched a very important point about, and this is something which I have listened a couple of times as well, that people used to be known pretty cheerful, extrovert, or maybe like they are very expressive in their feelings and pretty much a kind of in a social circle. Well,
Mhm.
but all of a sudden, they got into this situation where maybe they are very much within their self, not talking much and all, which may lead to depression. So, one question which I would like to ask
Mhm.
here, which I think a lot of viewers would be, what are some of the indications which shows that maybe you are getting into the realm of depression, anxiety,
Mhm.
and as you mentioned, that one of the thing maybe you're talking a lot about yourself in your mind and all. But yeah, if you can elaborate, like what if someone is looking at our conversation here, what are the key things to look that do they really get into the depression or anxiety or any other mental health related challenges in the process?
Yeah, so I mean, for me personally, I feel like it's definitely going to differ, but I felt like a numbness. I didn't feel alive. I didn't feel me. Um, I think, like I said, for me, it was just built up for so long. And so, um, I mean, looking back now, I remember when I was at my breaking point, I'm like, all I want is a sense of clarity. And I feel like I finally have that now. And it's through the mental fitness work. And so I think it just goes back to like your perception on a situation too. And, yeah, your ability to really take control of your thoughts and your mind, which creates your reality. So I think, like, I guess one thing I want to mention is that you don't need to be in like a depression or going through something traumatic to find benefit from this type of work. I think like it's definitely applicable to someone that is struggling with mental health, but it's also applicable for someone that's, kind of on autopilot, just like coasting along like with life, but not thriving, and then someone who's also doing super well. It's like all about just wanting to improve your mental state. So I feel like there's like a stigma in a way too, on mental health and mental fitness, like that it wouldn't be important for everyone to have something in place. And so um, yeah, I don't know if that kind of helps answer your question there, if I can help clarify.
Yeah, a bit. I mean, just to kind of thinking from the perspective of sometimes people do feel that they are all okay. I mean, they're happy. There's no challenge or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
However, there might be some instances maybe that they are facing some mental health issues. And now, how exactly you can differentiate maybe a question around if you have a stress maybe a continuous perpetual stress, or that may yield to a mental health or mental fitness issues, or vice versa? Do you have any perspective whether these are exactly the same things, or we are trying to confuse ourselves?
Yeah.
Because in that way, we can understand that if we are, I mean, that based on that, we can take a right steps to kind of rectify it.
Yeah, so I'd say there's definitely like a difference between mental health,
Mhm.
mental illness, and mental fitness. And so, with mental fitness, like I said, you can think of it as like a regimen in place to build your mental muscles, and have control over your thoughts to create a good mental health. So, like me personally, I work with like a therapist as well as my mental fitness coach, and so I think it's really dependent on the individual, right, and what you're trying to work through. But
Mhm.
I think like you could definitely do a combination there, just depending on what you're feeling or what you're struggling with, right?
Got it. So for example, like, okay, we got to a point, for example, that I may think that, okay, I may have to kind of reach out to the experts, or the people, to understand what is the next step from here. That I may be feeling some mental health issues. So based on that, what's your perspective that, okay, I have identified that I may be having mental health and fitness issues. So, what would be the next step would you recommend to the people?
So just meaning like what would be a good like step for them to take if they're like, okay, this is something that I'd want to look into.
Yes, I mean, what is the next step? Okay, I identified that I do have
Oh,
some
sure.
mental health issues. So, what is the next step? Do I have to reach out to our relatives, loved ones, experts, guidance? What do you suggest?
I would suggest, I think, first and foremost, just like listen to your heart and your
Mhm.
intuition, like what you need personally. I think it's always helpful to reach out to a loved one or someone you care about to be able to ask for their advice if needed. From a mental health perspective, or your therapist or whoever you're working with. If it's more specific to like the mental fitness topic, like I'm a friend. I'm here for everyone if they have questions as far as like my personal journey, like I've touched on, and Narav and I work really closely, and so we would help point the individual in the right direction to talk about next steps there.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And I think, as you mentioned, that apart from the journey, um, one of the thing every individual has to ensure that they are not in denial, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people, as you mentioned before, that thinks as a stigma, and then they don't want to accept the fact that they might need some kind of advice or consultation, or kind of a next step from there. So, and we have to kind of come out from this denial perspective, and then also we have to reach out to the people. And I think it's equally important for the people, the loved ones, to ensure that they should be pretty much, I mean, if you love someone, you have to understand that you can provide right guidance and advice when you feel certain things are not going as the way it's supposed to, because it's a two-way street. You cannot
Mm-hmm.
just sit on one side and expect the person who herself or himself is struggling with these, that they will reach out, because they have so many things to cope
Oh,
up within
absolutely.
their mind as well, right? So it's, I think it's equally important for both of the side to reach, kind of have a conversation and provide some guidance. So now, from your story, as you mentioned that you have gone through all the ups and downs and seasons of this journey, how do you feel right now? So, what is your passion at this time? Now, when you have already realized that this is something really working, most of the time people read, they listen to the stories. Now you have your own story, which really make a profound difference, because when you try to live the experience which you already read or saw from other person's perspective. So what's your overall journey looks like? Like, what is it you are basically passionate about from here onwards?
Yeah. Okay. So I would say I think well, so I took the program.
Mhm.
It was late last year, so it's been about 6 or 7 months, and honestly, I feel like it's changed my life in so many ways. Like I said, even after like 1 week, I could tell a difference. So I think like some of the big things is really, like I said, having a mind body connection and actually being like aware of my thoughts. So every thought that you have is, whether it's positive, negative, produces a chemical in your body. And so just being able to catch a negative thought pattern before it starts, producing negative chemicals in my body has been just a really amazing experience, just that I can actually observe that before it starts,
Mhm.
going down that path. And so I talked a little bit about the saboteurs and like the left side of your brain. So you actually run an assessment that tells you what your accomplished saboteurs are. And so mine were pleaser, which I'm sure doesn't surprise you based off the beginning of this, pleaser, hyperachiever, and then restless. And so, the second I hear those voices are still in my head, they're just really muted compared to what they were 6 or 7 months ago. And so the second I hear something come in my head, like for example, like even before I got on this podcast today, I started getting voices in my head like, Gina, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't, you're not good enough. No one's going to care what you have to say. Like those are some examples of what a negative thought pattern or saboteur would have in your mind. And I literally like paused and then utilized the program. What it teaches you, it's called a positive intelligence, or PQ rep, positive quotient rep. And so you engage with your senses and reframe to put yourself in the right side of your brain. So, for example, before I hopped on this podcast, I did some deep breathing and like paused and closed my eyes and listened to a sound that I hadn't heard in the room before, which just immediately put me into a calming state. And so I literally use this work every single day. And I think like looking back, like the biggest difference, like I said, is just like how I feel on the inside and who I portray myself to the world. It's the gap is so much smaller. I just feel like me, I feel like I'm thriving. And I just really want to like share this with everyone that they can feel the same way.
Yeah, totally agree. I think you put it in the right context in about, I think in one word is like self-realization or self-awareness. So obviously, as a human, we tend to do certain things which we are not supposed to, individual or personal level, or sometimes from the society side of the house. So you mentioned that everyone faces a lot of imposter syndrome, and
Yeah.
everyone. I mean, there are so many big achieved, I would say, individuals in the society who always went to what they believe in. Still, they have their set of imposter syndrome, and whether they would be or self worth. So that being said, I think one of the thing which you mentioned is really profound is when you're starting certain things, be self-aware and try to
Hmm.
make an environment to set the brain in the right context,
Hmm.
because brain is like a jumping monkey from one tree to another, and the more we calm and try, and this is something like as you mentioned the meditation yoga, that's it's all about
Hmm.
to be in the present rather than thinking about the future or kind of maybe having some anxiety of the past. And this is, I think, one of the things Dalai Lama has mentioned about is when people are depressed most of the time because they think too much about themselves. So if they always try to move from thinking from themselves to serving others, or thinking or spending more time what that person is thinking about, then their obviously brain shifts. So then it would be like less depression. Obviously, it's not like it will go away. It's a journey for everyone. But it's very
Right.
important to understand that the more you think about yourself, the it's always be I would say, a good recipe for these issues, because there's no time when it's a perfect world. You always think that that person has not treated the way you're supposed to, but you do
Mhm.
not understand if that person himself or herself is going through something. And the way how the thing process, there may be a lot of misunderstandings and all. So that's a great point, which you mentioned, setting the context, going through the overall exercise, be self-aware, and take it from there. So let's go to some of the questions which I generally ask to uh, a lot of my guests here. One is, what kind of advice, or what advice you got from your mentor, which is not even kind of create some aha moment, or really created or changed the whole trajectory of your life.
Yeah, I think that it would go back to this positive intelligence or mental fitness work. So Narav,
Mhm,
he's my one of my life coach, my mentor,
mhm,
and I think it's just really refreshing. I still work with him from like a coaching perspective, and just being able to tie it back to the program and the work that we've been doing has been huge. So one of the things that he told me the other day was just be in your sage and you'll know what to do. And it was just like it was such a simple way to tell me, once I'm in that right side of my brain, my intuition, I'll know exactly what to do. Like if I'm thinking about something too hard, I'm not in my sage. I'm in my saboteurs, the negative thoughts driven mentality. So it's really about putting yourself in the path of least resistance in life. And um, I guess it's just a calming feeling.
that's great. The other question would be like, do you have any favorite book or podcast apart from Let's Talk?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course. Let's Talk's my fave podcast, 100%. But yes, this was really hard for me to pick. I absolutely love reading, and so if I had to pick one, I'd say "Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself" by Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Mhm.
Absolutely love his work, and so after I went through the Positive Intelligence Mental Fitness program, assemble upon his work, and it's really just a combination of everything we've been talking about. He really dives into more of like the neuroscience, quantum physics, epigenetics. And so, yes, I love that book. It talks again about the ability to be the observer of your thoughts and kind of builds off of the positive intelligence mental fitness program I've been talking about.
That's great. I think breaking the habit, I would always say that if you do nothing, itself is a habit. So
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
right. So you just have to transform or move from one habit to another over there. So I think the last question would be that whatever the whole journey, maybe in your last 8 to 9 months of your achieving towards the mental fitness, if there is any one word you would like to dedicate to your journey at this point, what would that be?
I would say intentional. I think that, over the last 2 years, especially, my goal has just been to be as present as possible, live in the moment, and just be intentional with everything I'm doing, right? Whether that's the content that I'm consuming, the
Mhm.
people that I'm spending my time with, whatever the case is. And so I've been really trying to reflect on that and just be as present and happy and content as possible.
Amazing. Intentional. I think that is a big word, and it summarizes, I think, a lot of the journey which you have really gone through, and it really inspire a lot of people out there as well. So, towards the last part is, if people would like to reach out to you and learn more about your journey, or the program which you have followed through, what are the different mediums they can reach out to you?
Absolutely, I'd say first with my life detox, I
Mhm.
honestly got off of most social platforms, so I'm still on LinkedIn, and so I think that would be a great one if you want to look me up on LinkedIn. or reach out to me at my Stratosphere email, and that's Gina. I have to make sure I know Gina Olson at stratosphere-llc.com.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, Gina, thank you so much for providing today your journey, sharing your journey here, providing some perspective, and reinforcing the fact that any kind of a fitness, whether the physical or mental, is equally important for having a fulfilling life or enriching life, which obviously we always mention, and be intentional, as you rightly mentioned, that intentional towards your goal, intentional towards your life, be self-aware, set a right context and environment. As you mentioned, that there will be a lot of things here and there, but you have to make sure that you have a right company, right set of people, right set of things happening in your environment, because that's the way how you create the habits and the life which you would really vision for in your life. So thank you so much and have a great day ahead.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
We hope you enjoyed our show today. If you have any thoughts or questions, feel free to reach out to us on social media or leave a comment. Don't forget, yes, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. And if you find value in our conversation today, we would be incredibly grateful if you could leave us a rating, reviews, or comments. Again, thank you for tuning in, and we will be back with another episode next week. Till then, keep the conversation going. Let's talk.